Check out the smoke from this Volkswagen Golf. This isn't tyre smoke, this is engine smoke. Hang about and I'll tell you the story of this little car. Now I saw this car advertised online. It was a really cheap price, had super low kilometres and it was in fantastic condition, but the ad read that the engine was smoky. So it sounded like my sort of project. I went to check it out and the owner had told me that they'd added 4 to 5 litres of coolant into the oil sump. This was causing all sorts of issues, firstly because the sump was overfilled and the oil and the coolant were mixing together to create this emulsified mess. The pressure in the sump had blown the oil cap off and the intake manifold was filled with a whole lot of emulsified oil. After draining about 10 litres of coolant and oil out of the sump, I just set about trying to flush out the engine of all this emulsified oil. At this point here I had the rocker cover off and I was just winding it over with the starter motor and you can see all that bubbled emulsified oil. I was using a little bit of diesel and oil here just as a very thin mixture just to try and wash it through, and kept draining out the sump in between doing this. Did this for about 10 minutes just to try and clean it out and then just started the reassembly process. It was a bit of a fingers crossed situation, didn't know if it would work out but had nothing to lose in trying other than a few hours of time. The reassembly process is quite straightforward. It's just a matter of putting the rocker cover back on, putting the intake manifold back on. I had the spark plugs out that just helped with winding the engine over on the starter motor, just so I could get maximum speed from the engine. Also, I tried to clean out the intake as much as possible and a lot of the PVC tubing and air breathers. However, there was a little bit of oil still in some of these, but I'll just wait to see how things go. Now obviously this was a very unconventional problem, and I gave it an unconventional approach to fix the problem as well. I like to think whenever working with cars that you just think the problem through and try and apply some logic to it and see if you can repair it rather than just replace it. Here it is getting some fresh oil, and obviously it had fresh filters in there as well, and just getting it ready to start. Now after starting the engine up, everything ran well, sounded okay, so we thought we'd take it for a bit of a drive. I set up the camera here on the back of the car because I knew it was going to be a little bit smoky. As I'm pulling away here, we can begin to see some wisps of smoke, but as I started to put the foot down, the smoke started to get heavier and heavier. I think here the vision really just starts to speak for itself. Didn't really know what to do, but I thought, well, if I keep driving, perhaps it'll start to clear itself out. So I started to put the foot down a bit more. There were a few people who were on the side of the road who saw my smoke and gave me all sorts of signals, but I just kept driving anyway. Now the engine was actually running really quite well. There was no unusual sounds, it had plenty of power. The car was driving nicely. There was no unusual sounds or warning lights or any issues whatsoever, other than this huge big trail of smoke in the background. I pulled over a few times just to sort of let the street clear of smoke. I didn't want to cause too many problems, but I wanted to keep driving to see if I could just burn off any of this oil that may have still been in the intake runners or in the cylinder head or stuck in around the rings or anywhere else where it can be burning up. Now after a good 10 or 15 minutes of smoking up my local neighbourhood, the smoke began to clear, and I found here that I was driving quite well with little to no smoke at all. I continued driving like this for a while, and before long the exhaust smoke was totally gone and the engine was running spot on. Now I did a compression test and an oil pressure test, and there's no lasting damage whatsoever. So that's the story of this little Golf. It's now sold on to new owners and they absolutely love it. Now thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure you give it the thumbs up. Also remember to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you leave any comments or questions below and I will answer every single one of them.